Type a prompt, wait 10 seconds, you have a jingle. No composer, no studio time, no invoice. It feels free, but free is only true if you stop looking at the bill after the first 10 seconds. Two costs are still coming, and neither one shows up on the generation screen. Here is the appeal, and it is a real one. AI music generators can produce something usable in minutes, at a cost close to zero. For a quick internal video or a low-stakes social clip, that trade can genuinely make sense. The problem starts when brands apply the same basically free logic to anything that represents their company in public at scale for years. A jingle used once in internal deck rarely creates a problem. A jingle baked into your main product video, running across paid ads, playing on your website for the next 3 years is a different kind of decision wearing the same "it only took 10 seconds" packaging. Because the true cost of that jingle was never priced at the moment you generate it. It gets priced later into separate bills that rarely show up in the same conversations as the original decision. One is a legal bill, the other is trust bill. Neither one has a line item on the AI tool's pricing page. And both of them tend to arrive months after jingle is already running on every channel your marketing team touches, which is exactly when they are most expensive to undo. Start with the legal bill because in 2026, it is no longer hypothetical. Suno, one of the biggest AI music generators, is still fighting active copyright lawsuit from UMG, Universal Music Group, and Sony, even after raising $400 million in new funding this year. When the case started, the label claimed 560 songs were used without permission to train their model. The amended complaint now claims more than 61,000. That number did not shrink as the case matured. It grew by more than 100 times. Warner Music struck a licensing deal instead of fighting it out. Universal and Udio settled too and launched a licensed AI platform together. Read between those settlements for a second. Even the companies building these tools are treating the copyright status of AI-generated output as unresolved enough to negotiate around, not something safe to assume. And this is not limited to music. A separate $3 billion publishing lawsuit filed against an AI company in January 2026 is already the largest non-class action copyright case in US legal history. If your brand publishes a jingle built on that same uncertain foundation, you inherit that uncertainty quietly without ever signing anything that says so. Nobody hands your brand a warning label at the moment generation. The uncertainty just sits tree attached to your video waiting to underlying case to resolve one way or another years after you already spent the budget building content around. Now the second bill, and this one is about your audience, not courtroom. Something shifts how people feel about AI content in 2026. 119% of people now say they feel excited about AI, down from 50% just 2 years earlier. There is not a small dip, there is a collapse in sentiment. I heard media responded by launching a tagline built entirely around this shift. Guaranteed human, a promise that never use AI-generated personalities or AI-generated music. Their own research found that 90% of listeners include people who use AI tools themselves every day, still want their media made by a person. And when researchers asked consumers directly about AI-generated music in ads, a meaningful share said it made them question the brand's quality or reduce their interest in it outright. Not because the audio sounded bad, often it sounds perfectly fine. Some brands have leaned into that skepticism instead of hiding from it, turning "we know this looks AI" into the joke of the campaign. That can work, but it is a deliberate creative bet, not something that happens by accident when a generic jingle just get used in quietly the background. The riskier position is the brand that never made a choice either way, that simply let the default tool make the decision and hopes nobody in the audience notice. Because human-made is becoming its own signal of value, the same way handmade once was. And a generic AI jingle sits on the wrong side of that signal. At the multi-music, this is exactly why sonic strategy exists as a layer above the tool themselves. Not to reject AI as production aid, but to make sure what represents your brand publicly as a clear, defensible, intentional origin. Something a generic prompt can guarantee either the label or the audience. We actually made the deeper case for that in another video on why brands keep hiring sonic strategists even though their AI tools are everywhere. Worth watching if you want the full argument. So edit up properly. The generation itself costs almost nothing. The legal exposure, if your output turns out sit on contested training data, can cost a great deal. And the exposure is currently expanding, not shrinking. The trust cost is harder to put a number on, but the compounds every time an audience member notices and quietly downgrades how seriously they take your brand. Before you generate the next jingle for something that actually matters, price the whole bill, not just the part that shows up in 10 seconds. Ask where the training data came from. Ask what happens to your video if that question gets answered badly in court next year. Ask whether your audience, the ones who now say they want media, guaranteed human, would even want to know the answer. If you want sound for your brand that is clean on both counts, clear on where it came from and unmistakably intentional to the people hearing it, that is the work worth doing properly the first time. Let's build something that costs you once, not something that keeps sending you the bill.